Hey everyone, and welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at Allogene Therapeutics. They're a biotech company, and they're working on something called allogeneic cell therapies.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them. He trade under the ticker symbol ALLO.
That's right.
And, they're doing some pretty amazing things over there. We're talking about off-the-shelf cancer treatments that could totally change the game.
Off the shelf. Now that's a term that some of our listeners might not be familiar with. Could you break that down for us and maybe explain it to anyone who's not super into biotech?
Yeah, so right now you see therapies like CAR T-cell therapy are personalized. Basically, they're made from the patient's own cells. It's pretty effective, but it's also really expensive and takes a long time. Allogene is working on these allogeneic therapies. They're made from donor cells, so they can be manufactured in advance and be ready to go right away, kind of like just picking up a prescription from the pharmacy.
Wow, that sounds so much more efficient. And maybe even cheaper too, right?
Exactly, and that's why there's so much attention on Allogene right now. Their stock has been kind of all over the place lately. It jumped almost 45% to $2.04 recently, but it's still hanging around its 52-week low.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of talk about their upcoming earnings announcement on March 12th, 2025.
So we've got this incredible potential for revolutionary treatments. But their stock is kind of struggling. It seems like something's not quite adding up.
Well, there are some reasons for that. First of all, Allogene isn't making money yet. They have a negative price-to-earnings ratio and negative earnings per share, which makes some investors nervous.
That's understandable, especially in today's market where people are a little more careful with their money.
Right. And here's another thing that's interesting. Allogene is currently the most shorted stock on the Nasdaq. Over 45% of their shares are sold short. What that means is a lot of investors are betting that the stock price is going to go down.
Wow, that's a pretty big bet against them. But why, though? I mean, they're working on these amazing therapies. They even got FDA clearance for a new clinical trial for ALLO 329, which is a dual-acting CAR T-cell therapy. How is all that not good news?
Well, it is good news, but the world of biotech is all about risk and reward. Developing new therapies takes a ton of time and money, and there's never a guarantee it's going to work out. I think the investors who are shorting Allogene are probably worried about those financial realities.
So it's like they're saying, hey, this all sounds great in theory, but can they actually make it happen?
Exactly. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Okay, so we've got this big question mark hanging over Allogene. They're working on some pretty awesome therapies, but investors aren't so sure. What about this new clinical trial they got approved for? What makes this ALLO 329 therapy so special?
Well, like you said, it's a dual-acting therapy. That means it's designed to target two things at the same time. This is a big deal because it could make the treatment more effective. And it could even open up possibilities for treating different kinds of diseases.
So not just cancer anymore.
Exactly. This particular trial is for autoimmune diseases, which shows they're thinking beyond just oncology. That's a huge market with a lot of needs that aren't being met.
Okay, so they're expanding their reach. They're coming up with these innovative dual-acting therapies, but we still have those short sellers out there.
Yeah.
Are there any signs, maybe from a technical analysis point of view, that things could be looking up for Allogene?
Well, there are a few glimmers of hope. Some short-term indicators, like the 10-day exponential moving average and the 20-day simple moving average, are suggesting a possible bounce. But it's important to look at the bigger picture, too. Allogene is still trading below its 50-day, 100-day, and 200-day moving averages.
So mixed signals from those technical indicators, what does that tell us?
I think it tells us there's still a lot of uncertainty in the market about Allogene's future. The short-term indicators might suggest a temporary upswing, but the longer-term ones reflect those concerns about their financial situation and the risks that come with research and development.
This is fascinating. We've got this cutting-edge science potential breakthroughs in medicine, but the financial side is so complex and uncertain. I bet our listeners are really starting to understand all the different aspects here.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember that Allogene isn't operating in a vacuum. The entire biotech sector has been having a tough time lately.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of layoffs and cost-cutting across the industry.
Right, and that's partly because of the overall economic situation. Concerns about inflation have been making the market jittery, and biotech, being a high-growth, high-risk sector, is really sensitive to these changes.
So even if Allogene is making amazing progress, they're still affected by these bigger economic forces.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tough situation, but there's this interesting thing happening that I think is worth mentioning. Bayer, you know that big pharmaceutical company? Well, they just pushed their own allogeneic therapy for Parkinson's disease into phase 3 trials.
Wow. So it's not just Allogene out there pushing the boundaries. other major players are starting to see the potential of these off-the-shelf therapies too.
Absolutely. And Bayer moving into phase 3 trials is huge. It really validates this whole approach. Phase 3 is a super important stage of clinical development. It's where they test the therapy on a larger group of patients to make sure it actually works and that it's safe.
So this is big news for the whole field, not just Allogene. If Bayer is seeing good results with their allogeneic therapy for Parkinson's, it kind of supports the idea that Allogene could be onto something big with their cancer and autoimmune disease treatments, right?
Exactly. It strengthens the argument that these off-the-shelf cell therapies could completely change how we treat all kinds of diseases. It's about taking something powerful like CAR T-cell therapy and making it more accessible, more efficient, and potentially more affordable.
It's like taking personalized medicine and making it available to everyone.
It really is. And imagine what this could mean for healthcare if these therapies are successful. We could be looking at a future where life-saving treatments are available to everyone, not just the people who can afford the current personalized approaches.
That's an amazing thought. It makes you realize that there's so much more at stake here than just stock prices and earnings reports.
Absolutely. Investing in biotech is investing in the future of medicine, and companies like Allogene are leading the way.
So let's bring it back to Allogene specifically. We've talked about the potential, the risks, the science, and the challenges of the market. What should our listeners take away from all of this?
Well, the main takeaway here is that Allogene is a high-risk, high-reward investment opportunity. They're at a crossroads right now, facing some serious challenges, but also with the potential to really change the world of medicine.
They're kind of like a startup with a groundbreaking idea, but they're still trying to prove themselves.
That's a great way to put it. Their upcoming earnings report and the results of their clinical trials are going to be crucial in figuring out where they go from here. Investors need to weigh those potential rewards against the risks.
And one of those risks is that high short interest, right? We can't ignore that.
Of course not. The fact that over 45% of shares are sold short shows a lot of skepticism in the market. Investors are basically betting against Allogene's success.
So what could change their minds? What would it take for Allogene to prove those short sellers wrong?
Positive results from their clinical trials would be a big deal. If they can show that their allogeneic therapies are safe, effective, and maybe even better than current treatments, that would go a long way in building investor confidence.
And strong financial performance too, right? Showing they're moving towards profitability and generating revenue.
Absolutely. The market ultimately wants to see that their technology can actually lead to financial success.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like we've really gotten a deep understanding of Allogene, both the company itself and the science behind what they're doing. But I know there's always more to learn.
There is, and I would encourage all our listeners to do their own research on Allogene. The ticker symbol is ALLO. And also look into the whole field of allogeneic cell therapies. This is such a rapidly changing area of medicine with the potential to make a real difference in people's lives.
It's the kind of thing that makes you excited about the future, even with all the uncertainty and risk.
Exactly. And for anyone who wants to learn more, there are some really interesting articles and reports out there about allogeneic therapies. There's so much information available. The more you understand, the better prepared you'll be to make good investment decisions.
And that's what this podcast is all about, right? Giving our listeners the knowledge and insights they need to navigate the investing world. Especially in a field like biotech, where things change so fast and the potential rewards are so big.
I totally agree.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, I like where this is going. Hit me.
We've talked about how allogeneic therapies could revolutionize treatment for cancer, autoimmune diseases, even things like Parkinson's. But what if we take it a step further?
How much further can we go?
Think about the potential impact on healthcare overall. If these off-the-shelf cell therapies become really common, how could that change the entire landscape of medicine?
Whoa, that's a big one. It's something we need to start thinking about now. The implications are huge.
I know. It could affect everything. Drug development, healthcare costs, how easy it is for patients to get treatment.
Absolutely. It could lead to a whole new way of thinking about healthcare, moving away from personalized medicine, which is often expensive and takes forever, and towards a more standardized and accessible system.
It's a future that's both exciting and a little scary to think about.
It is, but it's definitely worth exploring. And that's why companies like Allogene are so important. They're the pioneers pushing the boundaries and forcing us to ask these big questions about the future of medicine.
They're really at the forefront of innovation. It's amazing to see what they're doing.
It is, and who knows, maybe someday, thanks to companies like Allogene, we'll look back at this time as the beginning of a whole new era in medicine.
That's a great point to end on, a new era in medicine. Definitely something to think about. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening to Investing Talk Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with your friends, and leave us a comment. We love hearing from you.